Welcome to Hawg Huddle, your weekly opinion-based podcast dedicated to all things Razorbacks. From the highs and lows on the field and court to the biggest stories off of it, we've got you covered. Got a question or topic you want us to tackle? Email us or tweet us your thoughts, and we'll bring them into the huddle. So sit back, relax, and let's dive into the latest. This is Hawg Huddle. Welcome, Razorback fans, to episode 2 of Hawg Huddle. I'm your host, Jesse Thurman, here to bring you the latest in what's going on this week with Razorback athletics. We've got a lot to cover in this show. We're going to touch briefly on women's basketball, a little bit more on men's basketball, and then we're going to dive headfirst into the chaos that has been the transfer portal this week. Cap off the show with the bowl announcement that came out today. And then a few coaching carousel that pertains to rumors surrounding Arkansas. Nothing major, just putting to bed some rumors that I don't think had much weight to them to begin with. I don't even think there was any smoke there. So let's jump into women's basketball to start us off. The Lady Razorbacks showed up big time in the SEC ACC Challenge on Thursday, taking down Boston College 75-64. Izzy Higginbottom was absolutely unstoppable. 38 points in 38 minutes without hitting a single three. Talk about carrying the team in that game. So, big win. Previewing what I'm going to talk about in men's hoops, Arkansas goes undefeated in the SEC ACC Challenge. So big props to Coach Cal and Coach Neighbors. Earlier today, the ladies hosted SEMO at Bud Walton, and it was a blowout, 84-45. With that win, they improved to 6-5 on the season. Next up, Texas Tech at Bud Walton next Sunday. Teams kind of finding a rhythm. They're looking better. We'll see what the future brings. SEMO is not a Power 4, Power 5, whatever we're calling it these days. They're not a high major. They're a mid to low major school. So take that with a grain of salt. Jumping off into men's basketball, Razorbacks had a solid showing on the road against Miami, knocking them off 76-73 in a nail-biter. Hogs trailed most of the game, but Boogie Flan came in clutch in the final minutes, leading the charge to secure the W. That win was huge for the SEC, which dominated day one of the challenge with 9 out of 10 victories. Thanks a lot for ruining the record, Kentucky. Also, first win away from Bud Walton for the guys. It's good to get that out of the way, build some confidence. No, Miami's not a great team, but a win on the road is a win on the road. So let's fast forward to Saturday. Things got a little shaky at the start against the Roadrunners of UTSA. I was at the game. It was dead in the first half. Bud Walton was a little over half capacity, not quite 2/3, I would say. A lot of empty seats in the building. Hogs trailed at halftime. I was a little nervous. Came out of the second half. Got things working, got rolling, crowd got into the game, and Hogs outscored the Roadrunners by 20 in the second half, pulling away with a 75-60 win. Not going to win a beauty contest with that game, but they won, and I'm not going to complain about a win. Got to see a couple good Trevin Brazil moves. He looked a lot better. Nellie Davis got going a little bit in the second half. Jonas Adu actually got the start. He looked good, ran out of gas pretty quick, had a couple nice, just get down in the paint, get the ball, go up, and flush. So next up for the Hogs, we go to the Mecca of basketball, Madison Square Garden, to take on Michigan, and that'll be Tuesday night at 8 p.m. on ESPN. Don't expect a bunch of fans to go. New York's a long trip, and it's a work night. But tune in, cheer on the Hogs, holler at us on Twitter, tell us what you think. Let's support the Hogs and hope they can come away with another win away from Bud Walton Arena. Against Michigan will be big for the guys. So now that we got the hardwood out of the way, let's jump into the transfer portal. It's been a week, to say the least. We talked some last week about some players transferring out. And then I gave you 5 players that I thought might be transferring. Out of those 5, 4 have announced since then. So I'm just going to run through what I have down for transferring out right now. And then we'll go back and talk a little bit about each one after I run down the list. Transfers out for this year so far: tight end Luke Has, linebacker Alex Samford, DB Jalen Braxton, offensive line Joshua Braun, defensive line Nico Davier, linebacker Carson Dean, wide receiver Jaden Wilson, your 2 tight ends that are no longer on the team, Gums and Washington, backup center Amari Wiggins, backup quarterback Malachi Singleton, Patrick Kudas, and wide receiver Isaiah Satania. Luke Has was underutilized. He was an All-American blocker, essentially, is a term I heard used about him this year. Hated to see him not have the breakout year everyone was expecting. Don't know if things didn't mesh with Bobby, if things didn't mesh with Talon. Whatever the case is, things didn't mesh with the Razorbacks, and he is off to find a new home. I've heard Oklahoma is a good possibility, as well as Georgia. I'm sure we'll find out before next week's episode where he's going. Linebacker Alex Samford, he's a depth piece. Jalen Braxton played against UAPB, played against Oklahoma State, got hurt, and set the bench the rest of the year. I've seen a few rumors saying he's headed to DBU down in Baton Rouge, which that would be the 3rd defensive back we have lost to the Tigers in the Sam Pittman era. Josh Braun, there's a joke made on Twitter. I forgot to bookmark it so I could give the guy credit. But Josh Braun entered the portal, backed out of the portal, and then clarified that he will be entering the portal. I believe it was Brandon Baker made the joke. Another false start by Josh Braun. So I was watching Inside Arkansas with John Neighbors. John said that he was texting Josh Braun at the time. Josh said that there was a stipulation in the transfer portal that to transfer to a conference opponent, you must wait until the portal opens, and that he didn't want to handcuff himself from being able to go anywhere. So he wants to make sure he does it the right way. But when the portal officially opens Monday morning, Josh Braun's name will be in there. I'm curious to see where he goes. I haven't seen a lot on that, so we'll play the waiting game on that one. Defensive lineman Nico Davier made some good plays. Hate to see him go. Haven't really seen where he might be going. Don't like losing him. Linebacker Carson Dean, depth piece. Amari Wiggins, he was the backup center all the way up until La Tech. And when Addison Nichols got hurt, he didn't get to go in. And I guess that was the final straw for him. He will be transferring. Malachi Singleton, I hate to see him go. Really would like to have him back and competing for a starting job. Guard Patrick Kudas has announced, even though he wanted to redshirt so he would be able to play next year, well, next year's looking an awful lot like he'll be playing for the Ole Miss Rebels. Wide receiver Isaiah Satania. The main landing spot I'm hearing for Satania is looking like just north of here in Como. That would put 2 Arkansas boys in the receiving corps for Drinkwitz and his Mizzou Tigers. Luther Burden III is announced for the draft. Theo Weiss is out of eligibility. So you could have Isaiah Satania and Courtney Crutchfield showing out at Mizzou next year instead of in a Razorback uniform. Now, for me personally, it's tough to see so many players, especially starters, entering the portal. Like I said, out of the 5 potential transfers I mentioned last week, 4 have declared. The big question mark now is Braylon Russell. There's plenty of rumors floating around on him. I've heard a couple different things. I'm hearing more that he's staying than leaving. So once everything shuts down, we will know if Braylon Russell is a Razorback or not. And I'm not going to be convinced he's a Razorback until the spring portal closes, just because of the way everything went down towards the end of the year. Doesn't sit right with me. Something doesn't seem like it's going the way it should be. So I want to really wait and see there. Let him get through spring ball under year 2 of Petrino and see how he looks. See where his mind's at. See if he still is a Razorback then. Now, I know everyone is going to say, because it's been all the rage on Twitter and Facebook, every program deals with this. My take on it is, yes, a lot of programs deal with players transferring every year. But you don't see this many starters and key contributors transferring away from a team unless there's a coaching change. So what I mean by that, yeah, Alabama's got a couple players entering the portal. They're not even in the playoffs this year. They didn't make it. Imagine that. But they're superstars. Ryan Williams is not transferring. Their depth pieces are transferring to get playing time. Yes, Isaiah Bond was an exception to that rule last year, but Saban did retire and you got a complete new coach. I don't know if there's toxicity in the locker room again this year. I don't know if players and coaches aren't getting along. I'm not there. I don't have connections. I just know I'm looking at my list right here. I'm looking at my list and 6 starters already in the portal. Satania was underutilized a little bit, but he had some big catches. He also had some big drops. Not as many as Broden, but he had some big drops. So hopefully when we meet again next Sunday evening and I record another podcast and release it, it'll be more good news since the portal will be open. We'll actually be bringing players in. One thing about all these guys leaving is that's going to free up a lot of NIL money. Now let's see if Sam and company can use it correctly. Another point I want to bring up while we're talking about this is a lot of the Petrino fans. I'm a Petrino fan myself, so I'm not calling anybody out. A lot of Petrino fans are like, year 2 in Petrino's offense is going to be better. Year 2 was better last time around. He's going to have practically a whole new team between players running out of eligibility and players transferring. An entire new team. So it's essentially going to be year 1 again. Yes, his quarterback will have experience in the system. Hopefully, Talon can be a better decision maker next year, hit some of those quicker passes. Hopefully, we bring in some offensive linemen and give him a little more time just so he can be comfortable in the pocket. And I think if he has a little more time early on, he'll get to where he's making those snap reads, and you'll see Bobby Petrino offense working at full potential. But there again, year 2 of Petrino offense last time around had a bunch of returning players. This year, it's going to have a bunch of new players. So that's going to about wrap up what I've got for transfer portal on this one. A few more notes, and I'll get y'all out of here. For everybody saying Barry Odom is coming to Arkansas, no, he's not. He was announced today as the next head coach for the Purdue Boilermakers. He's going to try to revive that program and get them back to winning football, because this year Arkansas would have beat Purdue handedly this year. I'll put it that way. And for everyone saying Rhett Lashley, shout out to my buddy Brandon. He's locked into an extension with SMU. He has an easier path to the playoffs with SMU. He has more NIL money with SMU. There is no reason for him to give up what he has and come to Arkansas. I understand we as fans, we think we're special. Some of us Hog fans think we're special in the wrong way and that we're the only fan base that bickers and argues amongst ourselves and we're the most toxic fan base. No, all fan bases are the same. But our school's not special. Just because he's from here doesn't mean he wants to come back. And I'm sorry, if I'm in his shoes, I don't know the full ins and outs of everything, but he was a field goal away from winning the ACC championship. He's not going to be a field goal away from winning the SEC championship in year one at Arkansas. Maybe he'll come in the future. We'll see how things play out. But at the end of the day, unless something insane happens, Sam's back next year. Looks like Petrino's back next year. And haven't heard anything to the contrary, so it looks like T-Will's going to be back next year. But with all that said, bowl announcement. It shows how excited I am about this bowl game. Arkansas will be headed to Memphis, Tennessee to play in the AutoZone Liberty Bowl against the Texas Tech Red Raiders. First time we've ever met in a bowl game. We did have a home and home with them a few years back. I can't tell you anything about this game. I haven't looked at how the transfer portal is affecting Texas Tech, but the way it's affecting Arkansas, I don't even know who's going to play. Armstrong isn't playing. He's not going to risk what he's got going headed to the NFL. I don't foresee Landon Jackson playing. Obviously, none of the transfers are going to play. Taylor Green might be throwing passes to Bobby Petrino the way things are going. One player that will probably get some run that'll be good, I've not seen his name for portal yet, C.J. Brown. He had a couple freshman mistakes in key moments this year, which head scratcher of why you have that freshman in there during those moments. But I would like to see C.J. Brown have a big game in the bowl game, get some confidence heading into next year. Jordan Anthony has potential to have a really big game in this bowl game. Also, I'd like to see Monte Harrison get some reps. What little bit that I can remember seeing him throughout the year, very athletic. Yes, he's considerably older than his teammates, but a very athletic player that I think with a chance could be an impact player, at least coming off the bench or filling in for our top tier wide receivers. And who knows, an off season with the program, he may become a top tier wide receiver. But we'll just have to wait and see on that one. But that's all I've got for this week, folks. Don't forget to tune in Tuesday for the Hogs at Madison Square Garden taking on Michigan, 8 p.m. on ESPN. Keep your eyes out on the transfer portal. With it officially opening tomorrow, things are going to get even wilder this week. Hopefully, we will have less announcements of players leaving and more announcements of players coming in. We'll just have to wait and see. But thanks for hanging out with me today. I really appreciate you listening in. Tell your friends about the show. Reach out to us on socials or email if you want to hear me talk about anything in particular. I appreciate each and every one of you. And that's all I've got for tonight. Have a good evening. Let me take this opportunity to say thank you for listening to Hawg Huddle this week. Make sure and subscribe on your favorite podcast provider. Tell your friends and follow us on socials. We're on Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube. Thank you again for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.